Hello and thanks for checking out TheChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. We're going to be looking at a bunch of tickers today. WEED, CRON, APH, ACB, TGOD, IIPR, LXRP, CANN, CVSI. It's going to be a doozy. This is just a chart that I made for the crypto people. Crypto's been fading since its massive run and all-time highs, and honestly, the crypto or the MJ space gave me the experience to know that it was not going to last and encourage people to lock in profit while they have it, but now also trying to get people from being all depressed and show them, what happened in MJ, because it's the same psychological thing. We pulled back 60% in MJ. At this point in crypto, we've pulled back about 70%, but it's definitely very, very similar in terms of the psychology of what's going on. So let's get into where we stand with Canadian MJ. I have not liked the shorter term trading opportunities in the big four this past week as we're settling in after the market is pricing in the vote, and the after vote has been playing out for a little bit. So now the bulls definitely still have full control. That's the bottom line. If you are in a longer position, a swing position, there's no reason to sell at this point. But in terms of my shorter term mindset, there's nice day trades, but holding overnight hasn't been great, especially when finance news comes out and the price drops 3% first thing next morning. That's something that I'm trying to avoid, but it's definitely still a very bullish weekly chart. We have our higher low, 33.76 most recently, and anything above that level is going to maintain a higher low. So we're still well above that. And in terms of resistance, we still have a lack of resistance. It's just the 41s have some levels of resistance on the daily, and then the all-time high up at 44. So all-time highs, we know we're going to see some nice follow-through because that's when some money pours in as traders recognize all-time highs. So if we do break $44 this summer or fall, I'm looking up towards 48 to 10% follow-through move fairly quickly after that. That's something to keep in mind. But here on the daily chart, it's just a lot of chop. It's just green, red, green, red, green, red, green, green, red, green. So a lot of back and forth one day to the next, but a couple strong closes. The strong closes haven't really had a whole lot of follow-through, and the bulls are hoping that changes to start this next week. And things are definitely really tight. So we have multiple daily inside bars just showing a tightening range for the last 3 days of the week, and a strong close that has us looking up at 39.75 and 39.90, which we can just round up to 40 psychological because that level has been coming into play. But those are the two levels we're watching, and if they break, we head up to 41.40, and then we know a lack of resistance is going to follow. We have a bull MACD cross could follow through after the bear one. No significant follow through for the bears at this point. At this point, the bears have to see a break of 38.42. We have a triple low of support all in this area. If that breaks, we're dropping down to 37.55. So we have a nice range to be watching. Pretty much 38.42 support and 40 resistance for me is the prove it zone, where the bears are either going to prove it with a break or the bulls are going to prove it with a bull break, and we're closer to a bull break than we are to a bear break. So I will be very quick to jump back into WEED and just place protective stop losses and look to ride a bull break if that does follow through. It's definitely going to be on the top of my watch on Monday, tomorrow. Shorter term time frames, the 4 hour, you can just get some more support and resistance levels, 39.90 right there. Clear little higher lows as we try and see a recovery. So other than that, I'm not really zooming in too much more on these big four. The daily and the 4 hour is giving me a good enough glimpse. And here on CRON, the weekly time frame, we topped out after seeing the bull break of the equilibrium, and now the bulls are just looking to form another higher low, and they should absolutely be easily able to do that. 860 is currently support, and on the daily time frame, there's a tighter range to be watching. And we had a more clear pullback, very distinct pullback after a big bull move, but again, it's just maintaining higher lows. And we are now looking to see if the bulls can break 946 and make their way back up towards resistance up at 1056. So again, a strong close for the Canadian MJ sector at the end of the weekend, and watching to see if the bulls can get a bull break first thing tomorrow to be looking up at resistance. So there's more resistance here on CRON than there is on WEED, with where we stand in proximity to all-time highs and previous price resistance. APH, weekly time frame, also a little bit more choppy. We had a key support level, and this is going to maintain a key support level, and that's down at 1125, and the bulls are trying to form a higher low compared to that level. You can see it's pretty much a tightening pattern. So we zoom into the daily chart to get more details of that, and we can see it's almost a double bottom and almost a double top. So I'm looking at resistance of 1314 and 1304, and we got support of 1125 and 1131. So pretty much a double top and double bottom. And if we do see another bull move, I would expect another lower high to stay in this tightening range, because the range between the lows and the highs still has a very large amount of space in terms of percentages that we can move while staying within this pattern. So bulls want to see a break of 1173 first thing on Monday, then 1213, and the closer we get up into the upper $12 range, unless we see increasing significant bull volume, we will anticipate a lower high to form and to stay in this tightening range. So even more resistance than both CRON and WED. So the rundown that we've gone through, least amount of resistance, most bullish setup is WED, then CRON, then APH, and ACB is an inside bar on the weekly time frame to be watching. Also pretty tightening range. So the daily chart has our high and our low of consolidation. The low of consolidation is a daily higher low, maintaining strength for the bulls. And we are now looking for continuation. And again, same thing, the proximity to go from just a low to a higher high, it's a lot of ground to make up. So I would anticipate a lower high to form in this scenario as well, and to stay in a tightening range here. So resistance is going to be 919, and then we'll be looking up for a lower high, perhaps in the upper $9 range. All depends on how the market goes and how WED and some of the leaders go, but the must-hold support is 851 to stay the strongest for the bulls. I will definitely shift my mindset to a lot more bearish in the short term if we lose daily higher lows, which are still intact on all of these big four names. TGOD has had some nice trading opportunities. So if you saw the video we put out at the end of last week, it was either Wednesday or Thursday. After that, news came out on Reddit in terms of, it was published by somebody small, but the news was passed around on Reddit of the site not being completed in terms of construction and hardly starting. But it was a great setup for an oversold bounce, and we entered the gap down open. It pretty much went exactly according to plan. I was talking about the 580s. We got 589, so pretty darn close, and the bounce was really nice. It was very quick, and it was pretty much the move was over in the first 20 minutes, but it held up enough to, lock in profit and position yourself to be very favorable in that trade. So we have the daily low. This is now the most important short-term support level. That's down at 589. And we're going to bounce and look for a lower high compared to the all-time high. Whenever you're in a new price range, as we were, the odds of an equilibrium forming as things settle down and as we see price discovery is extremely high. So again, unless huge volume comes out of nowhere, we're going to be looking for a lower high to form perhaps in the low to mid $7 range. And we'll see if the bulls can keep up this bounce into the start of next week. We do have an increase in position in MJ, the ETF, of their holdings of TGOD. I believe it's 0.75%. We got some members that are all over that, and a great help in giving us updates to know what the ETFs are doing, because at this point, when ETFs are buying something that's in blue sky breakout, we've seen multiple instances where there is huge money to be made. So staying on top of that is important. The 4-hour time frame, higher low. So to maintain this bounce strength, 623 is the key support, and resistance first thing Monday, 692 and 7 psychological. Nice little increase in bull volume on this little continuation move. And we'll see if the bulls can keep this bounce going into early next week. IIPR, the weekly cup and handle pattern that we were pointing out, played out really nicely, and we got some nice follow through. Now we're consolidating. Anything on the weekly above 3180 is a higher low. So it all depends on your time frame for this trade. If you are, looking longer term and want to hold for dividends, the dividends last year were distributed June 28th. Don't believe there's a date yet on that this year, but we're looking back to somewhere in this general time frame in the next 2 to 4 weeks. But if you're looking longer term, you're looking at the weekly higher lows, and you're seeing it's just fine. We hit the all-time high. We hit all-time highs 4 weeks in a row. So now we're just seeing healthy consolidation. The daily chart did lose the higher low pattern, though, so that is notable. And I have trimmed off a position. I reloaded here on this initial daily higher low, got a really nice entry. And then as we pulled back towards that support level, exited 2/3 of that position, and now just holding a really small amount for that dividend, because I do anticipate some buying pressure once that dividend X date is announced. So loss of the higher low pattern. And we'll look for a bounce short term. The hourly RSI at this point is down right around oversold. And in order for the bounce to get going, I'm looking at 36.87 and 37.23 as a couple resistance levels that the bulls would need to turn things around. So definitely need to change the trend on the hourly time frame first. And if we do see a daily lower high and then a lower low, we know weekly consolidation is going to be more prolonged. So that's something to be keeping an eye on as well for IIPR. LXRP also in a position here with a really tight, clear setup. And the weekly time frame, certainly bullish. Lack of resistance but until the all-time high. That's another reason I like it. Same as WEED. Resistance is 231 and then the all-time high 254. So I like it because of the inside bars. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 inside bars in a row. It's extremely tight. I got a position where if we lost the higher low pattern, I would have gotten stopped out for a very small loss. So just having nice risk to reward on that trade. And here's the range where we got our high, low, lower high, higher low, double top, just barely another higher low, and key resistance test approaching. Bulls want to see a break of 218 first thing. That's a double top. Break that Monday, and we'll see some nice follow through, most likely with some volume behind it. I might add to my position in that sense. So I built a nice starter position on consolidation. I got in at $2 and actually my average was $2.03 and $2, so about $2.01, $2.02. Entered on this higher low and got a really nice position here as well. So I'm pretty much looking at break even or small taco losses if I do get stopped out. So that's the ideal scenario, especially in this tight pattern, because if it does break, we should get some nice follow through. And LXRP, smaller cap names in Canadian MJ definitely have bigger moves in terms of percentages at times. CANN is also a really tight pattern to be watching to come this week. We've got the 4-hour time frame. First, let's look at the daily. So the daily chart is a bounce attempt. We had a big bull day, and it was only one day, so that makes me a bit skeptical. And now we've been consolidating on very low volume. We are anticipating a higher low to form. So we're going to see, can the bulls form a higher low and then make their way back to the $4 range with our resistance at 430. So there's a nice, almost a 20% move to get back to that resistance from where we stand. But it's all about this really tight pattern in which direction we break, the 4-hour time frame. Again, another just really clear tightening equilibrium pattern, higher lows and lower highs. And the most recent range I would be looking at is 368 support. It's really 370, but that's close enough that I'll always just default to the lower number by a couple pennies. So 368 support and resistance is 380. That would be an initial break if you wanted to act early. And otherwise, the more convincing break will be 389. So keeping an eye on this tight pattern as well, similar to LXRP, just not as long and drawn out, but a clear tightening pattern. And CVSI, I have a position here as well. And that is because of the daily equilibrium. It's a very clear stop level. I will exit if 186 breaks. And I entered on this consolidation looking for that support level to hold. And again, as soon as you get close to a key support, and if the support level breaks, the pattern breaks bearish, but the risk to reward is so favorable because the risk is so small. If I enter, at 198, I say, all right, I'm risking 13 cents if I get stopped out. And it's very easy to calculate risk to reward. I'm risking 13 cents. If we get a bull break from 198, I'm looking up for 245 at the initial test. And if we get a new all-time high, it's obviously a lot more than that. So it's about a 3 or 4 to 1 risk to reward scenario. And equilibriums make it really clear and easy to set yourself up in trade situations that do have favorable risk to reward. So here's the clear equilibrium. I'm looking at multiple daily inside bars. So step number 1 to start this week would be a great sign if we could break Monday 215 first thing. Then we got 224 and 229 right after that. Double top at 245 and then the all-time high back here. And actually it's not the all-time high, but we're going back a decade. Nope, wrong ticker. It's coming to mind. But we're going back significantly to find the next resistance level. And again, it's such a fast mover in terms of percentages where the bull break of 245 alone would be very, very worth that trade. So the next resistance after that, we have to go back to this price range where we built a base back in 2014, 2015. So that's 4 years ago. And I'd be looking up at 265 and 313 as a couple of resistance levels. And we can see the weekly chart if we want to get the whole picture of things in terms of that resistance from previously. So clear bull breakout, tons of follow through. I mean, we went from 17 cents all the way up to $2.46. So huge percentage gains. And this is a key resistance zone that we are approaching. And if we get over that hurdle, there's very little resistance after the $4 range through the $10 range. So again, it's definitely worth something keeping an eye on, but just watching that tight pattern. So that's where we stand. A lot of my positions are based on tightening equilibrium patterns with clear stop levels. And we will be looking for the possibility of bullish continuation in the small cap names. I'm grouping the Canadian MJ sector into two different mindsets, the big four and then the small cap names, because we definitely saw funds leave the big four and head to the small cap names in blue sky breakout. IAN was another one, US ticker ITHUF. Just really strong bull moves with huge percentage gains that we're not going to see in WEED and these big names anymore. And what I mean by that is, over long periods of time, absolutely we can see those moves. But ITHUF on this daily time frame, in 3 days, we closed at 410, and 3 days later the high was 581. So that is more than a 25% move in 3 days, and it would take huge news to see that happen on WEED. It's definitely possible, but it's a lot less likely. So that's why money moves from the bigger names, which definitely still have a ton of volatility compared to, huge stocks like Apple and Facebook and all that. But the money moves from those and then goes to work trying to get the more volatility and the bigger percent gains in the smaller names, especially when they're in blue sky breakout. So that's where we stand. We'll continue to check back in, considering maybe doing a live. I do live crypto almost every weekend that I can. Maybe do a live MJ and look at tickers and answer questions and things like that. Perhaps next weekend. We'll see. I'll check back in on that. Have a good rest of your weekend. Happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there, and we'll see you soon.